As we continue to count down, let's take a closer look at the vehicles that will be taking Crew-8 to the International Space Station tonight. Sitting atop the Falcon 9, the Dragon spacecraft and its trunk stands over 26 feet tall. There are 2 windows on the spacecraft, plus 1 under the nose cone. The nose cone opens shortly after launch to expose the forward bulkhead thrusters and docking mechanism that will connect with the space station. Dragon's trunk holds solar cells, which power Dragon while it's in free flight. The trunk can also carry unpressurized cargo.
And Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. That doesn't include the 8 Super Draco thrusters used for an abort, which are no longer active once the crew is in orbit.
For those of you following along, you'll know that the Dragon spacecraft has played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting crew to and from the space station. There are currently 4 Dragon spacecraft supporting human spaceflight missions that have docked to the station: Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, and Freedom.
Crew-8 will fly aboard Endeavour tonight, which previously flew NASA's SpaceX Demo Mission 2, Crew-2, and Crew-6, in addition to Axiom's first mission, the very first commercial astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Altogether, the reusable Dragon spacecraft has completed 7 human spaceflight missions on behalf of NASA and visited the space station 38 times under NASA's commercial resupply and commercial crew programs.
As always, Dragon will be delivered to orbit today by SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, which provides 1.7 million pounds of thrust on its first stage thanks to its 9 Merlin M1D engines. Once the first and second stages separate, these engines are also used to help land the first stage. The first stage will perform 3 burns as it makes its way back toward Earth today. First is the boost back burn, and that's where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite to help flip the first stage around to head back to the launch site. The second burn is the entry burn, and that's where a single engine will reignite to help slow Falcon 9 down as it prepares to enter the Earth's atmosphere again. Finally is the landing burn, and that's where 3 engines will slow down the rocket enough to perform a precision landing back down on landing zone 1.
Meanwhile, the second stage continues to orbit, powered by 1 single Merlin vacuum engine with over 220,000 pounds of thrust. The second stage will secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit. And we did just hear that call out that stage 1 RP1 load is complete. That's great. We're continuing to check through these milestones, now almost less than 20 minutes until tonight's launch. So again, the second stage will continue to secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. About 40 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin, which exposes its guidance navigation controls that help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station.
With T0 coming up in just about 19 minutes and 30 seconds, our teams at the Cape and Hangar X are doing a series of system checks to ensure Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready. Let's check in with Ronnie for a quick status update. Ronnie?
Thanks, Jesse. We are still looking good for an on-time launch about 19 minutes from now, and we'll keep monitoring all the vehicle systems as we get closer to liftoff. Both Dragon and Falcon 9 continue to be healthy. So as we continue to listen and watch the countdown, our teams are continuing to prep the vehicle for flight, and propellant loading of both RP1 and liquid oxygen began at T-minus 35 minutes. We also heard the call out a few minutes ago that the launch escape system is now armed. The range, which is monitoring keep-out zones, among other key flight requirements, also continues to report no issues, as they are go to support tonight's launch. Weather also looks good, and we are still tracking less than a 10% chance of violation at our target liftoff time. As a reminder, today we do have an instantaneous launch window, driven by the orbital mechanics constraints of 2 spacecraft meeting in orbit. The technical term for that meeting is called a rendezvous. The reason we need to launch at a specific time is because Dragon is basically trying to catch up to the ISS, which as we speak is orbiting the Earth at more than 17,000 miles per hour. That means we have to deliver Dragon to the correct orbit, and we also need to time its trajectory relative to the orbiting laboratory so that they are in the same place in orbit at the same time. A precise liftoff is crucial for achieving a timely rendezvous between Dragon and the space station. So at this point, if we hear a hold called for any reason, we will have to stand down and target our backup launch opportunity, which is tomorrow at 10:31 p.m. Eastern. So with all systems go, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca for a status update from Houston.
Thanks, Ronnie. The flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston are ensuring the space station is ready to receive Dragon. They're also checking that all the communication links between the station, Dragon, and the ground are working properly. Right now, everything is proceeding as planned. The teams here in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will monitor the autonomous docking of Dragon on Tuesday when they enter joint operations, which happens when the spacecraft enters the approach ellipsoid, which is an invisible boundary that helps us monitor spacecrafts arriving and departing. After docking, the crews will perform
Dragon
a series
SpaceX
of
for
leak
an
checks
update.
and then
Teams are
work
still
to...
working. Expect more words here in a few minutes, shooting for T-minus 10 minutes to get you a brief.
And we just received an update that we are proceeding towards launch. Once the crews perform those series of leak checks on board, they will work to open the hatches both on the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch opening to take place about an hour and a half after docking. Once on board, the astronauts will be greeted by the space station crew and will then join in for welcoming remarks for the... Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Garrett Hain is on console overseeing the team for launch, and Paul Kanya will be on console on Tuesday for docking. That's it from here in Mission Control Houston. I'll toss it back to the team in Florida. Megan, how's it looking?
Thank you, Rebecca. If you're just joining us, we are now at T-minus 16 minutes, 7 seconds and counting from the 8th astronaut rotation mission to the International Space Station under NASA's Commercial Crew program. Rajachari, commander of the NASA SpaceX Crew-8 mission, here with me. And Raja, we just heard a call out saying to expect another crew brief at T-minus 10 minutes about the crack that the teams are currently monitoring in the side hatch seal.
Yep, and that's a pretty standard at T-minus 10 is usually when they've kind of done all the final polling and usually give an update to the crew and for the crew to make sure that they're all ready to go inside the capsule as well. And since we know of at least that one open issue, that's also kind of the logical time for them to update Crew-8 on the status of that before they go into the final terminal count. Not to say that they can't continue working it during that 10 minutes, but that's sort of I think the checkpoint they gave the crew when they'll give them some information about it. And so, yeah, it's always exciting, and I think the administrator said exactly what we would expect and exactly why we do what we do, that of course safety will be paramount. Of course we want to see them launch. Obviously the families want to see them launch. Crew-8 wants to get there, and the expedition on the space station wants to see them, but clearly we want everyone to be safe, so yeah. I know the team will do what they need to do.
So we're taking the steps towards launch, but we're waiting for that T-minus 10 brief to really give us the final
Right,
resolution.
so we'll continue doing stuff in parallel to be ready to go,
Sure.
But obviously the analysis still has to get completed.
So when Crew-8 arrives at the International Space Station, they will be greeted by 7 other crew members, including NASA astronaut Laurel O'Hara. She's been on board since last September and delivered this personal message to her soon-to-be new crewmates.
Hey, Crew-8. I'm so stoked for your launch and to welcome you on board the International Space Station. I very vividly remember my first few days on Space Station, so I'm looking forward to getting to relive those days through your eyes, and I'll try not to laugh too much. Matt, it's been an amazing 7 years so far. It's going to be really special to get to fly with you, such a good friend, and I know this is going to be one of our craziest adventures together yet. Mike, I can't wait to share this boat with you. Jeanette, looking forward to continuing the good times that we had in Star City together. Sasha, there's no ice rink on board, but we have some other games planned up here. I hope you guys have a beautiful launch. I hope you enjoy the special time that you're going to get to have in Dragon together orbiting Earth. And we'll be on board waiting with a big meal prepared with all the foods that we don't like. So with that, safe travels, and I'll see you on the other side of the hatch on Space Station.
I like that she said she'll try not to laugh so much as we're inviting 3 new first-time flyers onto the space station.
Yeah, Laurel is infamous for easily getting cases of the giggle, so it's awesome to see her. It's been so fun to watch her and the current ISS expedition crew loving working in space, and so I know she's excited as well as the rest of Crew 7 to see Crew 8 and Laurel's time, but she'll eventually get replaced by TC, who will be launching later in March from Star City on the next Soyuz up to replace Laurel. So we'll be tuning into that just a few weeks from now on March 21st.
T-minus 12 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. We are counting down really to a T-minus 10 brief with the crew to talk an issue that the team is working. Roger, can you talk to us about that? What are your final thoughts as we approach that?
Yeah, so I mean, we got to see, I think we kind of had an inkling just watching, you even brought it up as we were watching the hatch close out, just a lot more time taking pictures. And as we talked about at the time, the reason we do that, and they mentioned even back then, they said they maybe saw hair. And so as they go through and analyze those pictures, it sounds like, at least from what we could hear on the loops we can hear, and there's probably a whole bunch more going on in the background, that they're doing some analysis to see that a crack they saw in one of the photos, it sounds like. Whether that case and the analysis shows that we have what's called margin, meaning there's not any concerns for the worst case scenario of a reentry, as it sounds like what they're calling the bounding case. So that analysis I expect will be ongoing. It would not be unusual for them to tell the crew, even at T-minus 10, like, hey, we're still working it. We'll get you an update prior to launch. Because again, the more time you buy the team to do the analysis, the more conclusive of a recommendation they can come to. So I would expect them to be poring over that data. And like we talked about earlier in the show, that's why that's why we have all these teams here looking at the data.
Sure.
There's no more important thing than the human and human space flight. And so we want to be absolutely sure that they are good to go on their way to the space station.
And when we take that wide shot of Falcon 9 on the pad, we see a lot of venting happening. Again, propellant loading continues.
Dragon SpaceX for a follow-up.
Go ahead.
All right. We are confident that we understand the issue and we can still fly the whole mission safely. We're comfortable proceeding because the condition is bounding by existing analysis, as already mentioned. Additionally, we expect the gap created by this crack in the seal to close as the material will swell with reentry heating. And finally, it's on the lower heating side of the vehicle during reentry. The engineering team here is comfortable proceeding. How copy?
Dragon copy.
Okay, so
with that, Crew-8, confirmed displays are configured for launch.
All right, so with that, it seems like we are go for launch. The team telling the crew they are confident.
SpaceX Dragon, displays are configured for launch. Crew-7, this is Crew-8, we're coming for you. It's time for Crew-8 to relieve you of the watch onto the International Space Station. SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for you to cast off the strongback and launch Dragon Endeavour on its 5th voyage.
There you have it, the team confident that they can fly this mission end to end. So now, in this final stretch of the countdown, we're going to turn it over to Sandra and Ronnie at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, to take us through launch and ascent.
We copied all. Godspeed, Crew-8.
Thanks so much. So with that and Crew-8 sounding excited for liftoff, our next major countdown event will be around the T-minus 9.5 minute mark when the Falcon 9 launch commit criteria get checked by computers. So right now we're listening in for that call. The launch commit criteria are specific thresholds and pieces of information about the entire Falcon 9 system needed to make sure that the rocket is healthy. Of course, we have many systems in place to ensure that the rocket and crew are both safe leading up to liftoff and during flight, now that we're approaching terminal count. Our teams are performing all those final checks before launch.
Back in Mission Control Houston, there's a variety of systems and console positions that are also being worked in tandem and monitored by the team. These include cameras aboard space station, reboost capabilities, as well as a console that monitors trajectory to ensure everything is looking good. It'll be about a 9-minute ride to orbit today, and that's about the time that we'll see second stage cut off. A few minutes after that is when we'll see Crew Dragon separate from the second stage. And along the way leading up to this, you'll be hearing some performance calls as we get into the final countdown, and then after liftoff as well. These are SpaceX flight controllers reporting on trajectory, speed, booster performance, and key milestones. But there are some other calls you'll hear the crew make as well after liftoff. The crew will report out number and letter combinations, which mark different abort zones throughout the flight up the eastern seaboard. The first two, 1A and 1B, have that name because they're in the first stage, and that will last until they're up to the very north of North Carolina. The next are 2A through 2E. Those will come into play once the second stage kicks in. That takes us from the top of North Carolina all the way to the tip of Newfoundland in the northern Atlantic. Diverting a little bit from the other naming systems, you will hear the call Shannon, or forward to Shannon, which refers to Shannon, Ireland, meaning they would target off the coast of Ireland if they were later in that second stage and did need to abort. So again, you'll hear these different callouts throughout the flight uphill, along with key performance callouts from guidance, navigation, and control officers, and you can expect to hear from them on calls on trajectory and propulsion as well.
So one of the next callouts we're listening for is the announcement that Stage 1 engine chill has started, which is one of the key processes that prepares the engines for flight. Right now, propellant in the tanks is isolated from the engines, but at T-minus 7 minutes, we'll open the engine pre-valves and start passing just a trickle of liquid oxygen through the Merlin engine pumps,
Engine chill
chilling
has
the
started.
engines for the start sequence. There we go, right on time. Now, we do this because the super chilled and densified liquid oxygen is really, really cold, and we use this process to bring the engine hardware down to a cooler temperature before flowing all of the LOX and propellant into it during flight. At liftoff, Falcon 9 is consuming 700 gallons of fuel per second, so engine chill helps us to prevent thermal shock and ensures nominal engine performance. So again, now that we've got that good engine chill call out, shortly after that, we should be looking for that Stage 1 RP1 load complete call.
So with that engine chill now underway, we're looking ahead to the call out that RP1 load is, and there you heard it, RP1 load is complete. RP1 is densified kerosene or rocket fuel that will propel the crew into orbit. All of that RP1 is now loaded into the first stage, and we did hear that the second stage was completed a short time ago as well. We're still loading liquid oxygen on the first and second stages. This is the oxidizer needed to combine with the densified kerosene that just finished up loading. Coming up, we'll hear the call for Dragon to configure for terminal count and then transition over to internal power. Then we'll hear the propellant tanks on Falcon 9 are getting ready to pressurize, adding some additional rigidity and structural support as we get ready for the strong back to retract. At first, it will move just a couple of degrees, and then we'll see it swing open completely the moment of liftoff. That strong back provides access to Falcon 9's fueling lines and umbilicals for both prop load and the different gases being loaded on board. We'll continue to check through a couple more fueling milestones, including one around the 2-minute mark before flight, where we will hear that the liquid oxygen is finished on board the second stage.
Dragon is then configured for terminal count. Falcon 9 tanks pressurizing for strong back retract.
And we did just hear that call out. Dragon is in terminal count. The onboard computers now are taking control of the spacecraft. The first stage will finish liquid oxygen loading in about 3 minutes, followed by completion of second stage LOX loading 1 minute later.
Strong back retract has started.
There's a call out over the nets that we are moving forward into strong back retract. The next thing you might be able to see on your screen is actually going to be the clamp arms opening up around the base of this second stage. That will allow the strong back to recline about 2 degrees away from the vehicle. And because we've now begun pressurizing Falcon 9, we know that it's strong enough to stand on its own. That TE will throw back all the way to 45 degrees at liftoff. The strong back is part of the transporter erector, which provides liquids, gases, and electrical connections to the vehicle. There you can see those clamp arms have fully opened around the base of just the trunk of Dragon on stage 2.
And so the next major milestone that we're tracking today is stage 1 LOX load being complete. We expect that call out at about 3 minutes when that first stage LOX load will be completely finished. So all those white clouds of vapor you see on your screen right now are normal, and we'll continue to see them build up as we get even closer to launch. Because liquid oxygen is super chilled, it boils off a little bit in the warm Florida air. In for the call out that stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
There's the confirmation that we have completed loading liquid oxygen on board stage 1, but LOX will still be loading for about another minute on board stage 2. Then we'll prepare to vent down the TE, which is going to produce another white
Dragon
cloud.
is in terminal count and is on
You may
internal
also
power.
hear. There's confirmation that Dragon is on internal power. You may also hear an announcement to the crew about that venting procedure.
So everything continuing to go as planned this evening. We are now 2 minutes and 20 seconds away from the launch of Crew-8. Standing by in about 15 seconds, we should hear the call out that the second stage LOX load is complete and that Dragon is in auto idle.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And with that, you did hear that LOX load is complete. Gas closeout has also begun, so we're now isolating all the feed lines for the
Dragon
different
is
gas
in
systems
auto
from the
idle.
Falcon 9 rocket. They'll then get great news, continuing to move towards launch, and you
Ground
could
gas
even
closeout,
hear some of those
expect loud
gases
venting.
being vented over just shortly. And you can hear it even better now. Something else you might see here in a few moments is water being poured onto the pad. Because rockets are super loud, the sound can impart loads back on the rocket itself, so that water helps absorb and prevent the sound from hitting the structure and reverberating back onto the rocket.
FTS
Coming
is
up
armed.
on 1
Falcon
minute
9 is in
until
startup
launch.
and is now controlling. Dragon is in countdown.
The flight termination system is armed, and we are in
Dragon,
countdown.
SpaceX, go for
45
launch.
seconds.
Dragon copies. Go for launch.
Reports go. Crew reports go. Now
T-minus 30 seconds.
about 30 seconds away from liftoff.
Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engines full power. And liftoff of NASA Crew-8. Go Falcon, go SpaceX, and go NASA.
One Alpha.
Endeavour ascends, a beacon
one
of
Alpha.
human ambition. 1.7
propulsion.
million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew-8. Vehicle is pitching down range.
Nominal power and telemetry. Stage 1
And we
throttle
are
down.
getting good call-outs on propulsion. Falcon 9 engines now throttling down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Stage 1
Back to
throttle
you.
up.
One Bravo.
So with that call out,
Copy 1 Bravo.
we know that Falcon 9 is throttling back up, and that one call out for 1 Bravo means that we are in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance from Falcon 9. Now at this
Effect shell
point, the
has
crew
started.
are already pulling over 2 Gs. And with that call out, we know that that engine chill for MVAC, which is our second stage engine, has now also begun. That also means we have a couple of events that are going to happen in rapid succession. First is that chill on the MVAC engine, and then we'll have main engine cutoff, or MECO, where the 9 engines on the first stage of Falcon 9 will cut off ahead of first and second stage separation. Then the Merlin vacuum engine on board the second stage will ignite and carry the Crew-8 astronauts to orbit, while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. At this point in the flight, the 9 Merlin
Stage one,
engines
throttle
are
down.
starting to throttle down, and we're standing. There's that call out for throttle down, and we're standing by for MECO.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. And back in ignition.
2 Alpha.
Copy 2 Alpha.
So those incredible views on your screen, and of course the cheering behind me means that we have had successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, and ignition of our MVAC engine on board stage 2. We are also in 2 Alpha for the aborts if needed. Of course, that second stage is being illuminated on the right-hand side of your screen by our single Merlin vacuum engine on board stage 2. Now, the next milestone we're tracking is the stage 1 boost back burn on the left-hand side of your screen. And we are expecting completion of that burn in just about 10 seconds.
And so Crew-8 is now traveling at over 4,000 miles per hour. We're continuing to get good call outs, everything going really smoothly today. That second stage will continue firing until we reach about 8 minutes into the flight.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Dragon.
Good performance on the lone Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The crew's G-load dips right when we hit the separation event, and it's going to continue to build up now. Again, we just heard another call out for nominal trajectory. That was the guidance, navigation, and control officer stating nominal trajectory, or everything is looking good. Dragon is pointed in the right direction, continuing its flight uphill. This second stage will continue to fire until a little over 8 minutes into the flight, accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour and placing the crew in orbit. Right now, the crew is traveling at 4,500 miles per hour and is over 93 miles in altitude. That single Merlin vacuum engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space, and you really see it doing the heavy lifting right now.
So while Crew-8 continues on its way to the International Space Station, the first stage booster is on its way back to landing zone 1.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Confirmation there that the trajectory for both vehicles is looking good. Now, the first stage has a couple of events itself in order to land. At T plus 6 minutes and 16 seconds, stage 1 will begin its entry burn, which will be the first of 2 burns prior to landing. During this burn, Falcon 9 will ignite only the center engine for about 10 seconds in order to slow the vehicle down before it reaches the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. That will be followed by the landing burn at T plus 7 minutes and 21 seconds. This time we'll light 3 engines, and the burn will last for about 20 seconds, ending just about a minute before we expect Dragon to be inserted into orbit.
And so we did also hear a couple of different
Dragon
ground
SpaceX,
station call outs like Bermuda. That is one of the ground stations that we're receiving telemetry from, and everything continues to look really good with the trajectory. The crew now traveling over 6,000 miles per hour. Again, this second stage will continue to light for a couple more minutes before second engine cutoff. At that point, the vehicle will coast for a few minutes before separation. And it looks like we're starting to get some views of the Florida coast there on the first stage as it continues to make its way back to Earth.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Continuing to get good call outs, everything going smoothly. Now almost 7 minutes into the flight of Crew-8.
So the next milestone we're standing by for is stage 1 landing burn start. Again, as stage 1 approaches the Space Coast to touch back down at landing zone 1.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
And it is great to see that first stage back on Earth. Coming up, next on the second stage is second engine cutoff. You can hear some excitement here at Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters as that first stage successfully landed back on Earth. So second engine cutoff will take place here in just a couple of minutes. Once the lone Merlin engine cuts off and stops firing, the second stage will continue to coast for about 3 minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate. At this point, Dragon will separate from the second stage and will fly free with Crew-8 still on board and in orbit.
Shannon!
Copy, Shannon.
And that call out for Shannon, indicative of Shannon, Ireland, the very last abort zone in the second stage. The Merlin engine is about to shut down. You just saw it there on your screen.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Hearing good call-outs following second stage cutoff. The crew is in a nominal or as expected orbit. That is great news. That launch escape system, and we are getting our first view of Crew-8 inside Endeavour, 3 of them in space for the very first time. So again, we'll continue to coast for these few minutes after that second stage just shut down. This helps to allow rates and motion to settle out. There are actually small reaction thrusters on the upper part of the second stage that can be used to counteract any residual motion, basically making sure that we're in a stable coast before Dragon separates from Falcon. We expect that separation here to occur at about the 12-minute mark into the flight. So again, we did hear that the crew has been successfully inserted into a good orbit. This is the crew in microgravity, 3 of them for the very first time, all good call-outs.
So right now, the second stage is performing a series of checkouts as we prepare to separate Dragon from stage 2.
And so we will see that separation coming up in just a couple of minutes, after which a number of activation checkouts occur automatically. First, we'll be checking out 12 of the Draco maneuvering thrusters all around the service section of the Dragon spacecraft. And then we'll also begin to get ready for nose cone opening. Nose cone stays closed for the flight uphill to help protect all of those guidance, navigation, and control sensors. It also covers 4 of the Draco thrusters that will be used for the majority of the different phase burns, requiring Dragon to catch up to the International Space Station. So we are standing by for Dragon separation to occur here in just about 30 seconds from now.
Of course, the view you have right now on your screen. Oh, actually, now that our view has transitioned, you're getting a great view of Dragon's heat shield. This camera is on top of stage 2 and looking up into Dragon's trunk.
So if you're just joining us this evening, we had a successful launch of Crew-8. They're on their way to the International Space Station. The first stage has already returned to Earth and landed successfully, and the second stage has shut down, and we're awaiting separation, and you see it on your screen right there. Dragon and Endeavour now flying free.
Dragon, SpaceX, this is your launch chief engineer.
Go ahead.
Welcome to orbit. It truly is our greatest honor for you to trust us to launch you into space. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we trust that all the science and work you're about to do will continue to move humanity further towards the stars. We hope you enjoyed the ride, and thank you for flying on Falcon 9. Please send our regards to Crew-7, and make sure to remind them you just wanted to be fashionably late. I'll hand it off to the launch director for a few words.
Dragon LD, hope the ride was as awesome as a Cybertruck. Have a safe journey to the space station, and we look forward to seeing you when you get home. Thank you for flying SpaceX.
SpaceX, oh my goodness, what an incredible ride to orbit. I'm both glad and not glad that you don't have a copy of our ICS. The cheers the whole way up were incredible. A big thank you to SpaceX for incredible instructors. Tyler, I'm talking to you and your team right now. Incredible instructors, engineers, and operators. They're the reason we are now safely in orbit. A thank you to NASA, Roscosmos, CSA, ESA, JAXA, who work together to make the International Space Station work for us all. And of course, big thank you to my family, friends, and mentors who are the reason we're here today. Over to you, Mike.
Yeah, hey, Earth, just to let you know, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride with a bunch of really excited teenagers. Just want to mention the NASA community is just a really warm but steely-eyed family that does amazing things, and it kind of hugs you, but it pushes you into the unknown while watching your back. It's really been an incredible place for me to grow over these past 30-plus years, and now I'm really honored to fly this new generation spaceship with this new generation crew. Thanks to my own family for tolerating my otherworldly habits. Thanks to NASA for being the backbone of exploration that we are. And just thanks so much to our friends and colleagues at SpaceX for the awesome ride. It's great to be back in space again.
And I would like to second Mike and Matt's words. I'm super excited to be here. And, I need to here, and the words that come to my mind is that I'm so grateful and I'm thankful for everyone who got us to this point. There's no way we would have been able to do this without all the people, from all the instructors, from all the people supporting on the ground, to the folks in the kitchen who kept us fed, and Liz out at SpaceX. I'm so grateful for everyone, and I just want to give a big thanks to my family and friends who came from all over the world to see this. Thank you for supporting me through all the days of waiting to get to this point. Thank you for everything, and I want to give a quick shout out to my sisters who couldn't make it, Brenda and Patty, and then I'd also want to give a nod to Syracuse who supported me through everything, and I am in a New York state of mind right now. It is amazing. Thank you for everything.